Okay, we are continuing with the Rambam on Maaseh Bereishis in the overview of Maaseh Bereishis in Yesodei Torah. We're at Perek Daled Halacha Gimel, I believe. We just got done talking about the elements and didn't understand the last stuff that we read, but that's where we are. Okay. V'chol ha'mechubar, I think, right? Kol mechubar me'arba yesodis elu. Everything comprised of these four, or composed of these four elements. Lahem hu nifra basof. In the end, they will deteriorate into them. Right, they'll decompose. Yesh shu nifrad la'achar yamim achadim. Some of them will decompose after a few days. Yesh shu nifrad la'achar shanim rabim. Some of them will decompose after many years. Chosh nischaber mehem, and anything which is composed of them, efshar shelo yipared lahen. It is impossible that it will not separate into them. What, didn't he just repeat himself? I mean, he's strengthening the point by efshar, but isn't that kind of implied?
I think it's they are made of the elements, and so when they decompose, they'll decompose into the elements. That doesn't mean that sentence itself doesn't necessarily mean that they will decompose.
Well, the first one is that they will.
Yeah, isn't it? V'chol mechubar me'arba yesodis elu. Oh, you're reading it as. I mean, it sounds like you're reading it as all the things that are composed of the four elements that will decompose into them. I was reading it as they will ultimately decompose.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
I don't like agree with their reading, which was speculative reading. But I was saying,
sorry.
Their decomposition will be into those elements.
Yeah. Yeah, I also disagree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just look at the Chabad translation and see. Chabad says, every entity which is a combination of these four fundamental elements will ultimately decompose into them. Some will decompose after a mere few days. Others will decompose after many years. However, it is impossible. Oops. You would have helped, but your bum leg. However, it is impossible for everything which is a combination of them not to decompose into them. It is impossible for everything which is. I mean, is he giving a reason here? Meaning the first one was saying the fact that they will all decompose, and now he's saying it must be the case. Like this is a necessity. And those are two different points, because you could say that like, for example, here, I don't know if this example is just like a loaded example or whatever. If I said all human beings die, and it is impossible that they should not die, that's a different statement, because you could say all human beings die, but theoretically, there's nothing necessitating that, and that's like, I think one of the problems in these, that the scientists are working on, of like, why is it that like people don't just live forever? Yeah, that's what I got. Afilu hazahav ha'odem, even gold, and I'm going to assume that odem is rubies because it's red.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Oh,
ooh. Okay, good. It is impossible that it will not deteriorate and return to its elements.
That is interesting also, because like I guess he's like negating a bunch of arguments.
Yeah.
Like he's saying like you would think that, like, oh, gold, that's like an eternal thing. That's
Right. Also, he's strengthening the premise that he's supporting, I guess, the idea about the spheres, that since they're not comprised of the elements, then they won't deteriorate. Like this clarifies that point. Yashuv miktsas le'esh, miktsas le'mayim, miktsas le'ruach, miktsas le'aretz. Some part of it will return to fire, some of it will return to water, some of it will return to wind, and some of it will return to earth. Yeah.
It's the examples that you picked are kind of funny, because like gold is an actual element.
You mean funny from our perspective?
Yeah.
And
then he didn't pick the the strongest gem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know what they thought about the. I don't know what odem, the properties of odem are. Yeah. I mean, this is also just as a side point. This is a very this, according to the Ibn Ezra, is the whole point of Koheles, right? The whole Sefer Koheles is about all things deteriorate, physical things. Yeah.
So you can't pursue money.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, because it's going to deteriorate. Yeah. Hoil v'chol hanifrad le'elu yipared. Since everything that separates will separate into these. Lama nemer l'adam. Why does it say? Why was it said to Adam? I think this is Adam with a capital A. The el afar tashuv. You will return to the earth. The fi shirov binyano min afar, because the majority of his body is from the earth, right? In other words, if they really go into if you deteriorate into all of them, why does it only specify afar for Adam? Because that's the majority. Lo kol hanifsad kishi yipaseid miyad yachzor labrei. So this doesn't happen instantaneously when they deteriorate. Ela yipaseid v'yachzor l'davar acher. They will deteriorate and turn into something else. V'davar acher, and then that thing into another thing. Sofa dvarim yachzor liyasodos, and then ultimately those things will go back to the elements. Nimtu kol dvarim chozrim chalila, and it turns out that everything goes in a cycle. Yeah. I just want to see if Chabad translates Chalila cycle. I think it does. I think that's, yeah. Thus all entities are constantly returning to their elemental state in a cycle.
Oh, okay. It was like a really weird explanation.
Chalila. Yeah. The thing that I don't get, I mean, he's not stating the entire cycle. He's stating the decomposition phase of the cycle. For it to be a cycle, then those things have to then become other things. Like the circle of life type idea,
We could say it's coming back to the starting point.
Oh, I see what you're saying, meaning this point that started off from the very beginning. Yeah. Okay, now that it's a continuous cycle. Okay. Arba yesod elu mishtanim zelazeh tamid b'chol yom v'chol sha'a. These four elements change from one another constantly, every day and every moment. Miktasan lo kugufan. Some of them, part of them, not their entirety. Ketzad, how so? Miktas are takrova min hamayim mishtanis umisporeres nasis mayim. So it sounds like it's describing elemental erosion, right? Some of the earth that is close to the water changes and crumbles and becomes water. Yeah, I don't know if this is like an attempted explanation of an observed phenomenon, or if this is talking about something that's completely like not what we think.
It sounds like erosion.
Sounds like erosion, right? But until it becomes water, like.
Well, I mean, if it's dissolved in the water, people aren't gonna. If people can observe solids being dissolved in liquid.
Right.
If, let's say you take water and you put salt into it, you'll see that the earth of the salt becomes
I guess
water.
so. Yeah. I don't know. I just think that if they actually back then went and looked at places where erosion's happening, they could see if a bunch of dirt crumbles off and now there's more, it's shallower in the water.
Well, I think if you have a pool, then it's not gonna. I don't think you have a lake or something. I don't think you have erosion. I think it's something like.
No, I'm saying even on the seashore. Anyone who's been to the beach knows that if you walk into the water, there's ground, and then it can or there's sand or whatever, and then it can get deeper and deeper or whatever. And if you were there when you were a boy, and the water was this deep and there was this much land, and then 10 years later you notice that it's like that. So then it didn't become water; it just went underwater. I don't know.
Is that what happens?
I don't know. I also don't know. I guess we're just as ignorant as they are.
I thought what happens is it'll easily get maybe a little bit will rain, but most of it will just get washed out.
That probably makes sense. Yeah. Okay. V'chein mixas hamayim hasmuchim leruach. So too some of the water that's close to the wind. Mishtanin umismasmasin. Never seen that word in my life. Sounds like one of the things from the Piyutim on Rosh Hashanah. Mismasmasin. You know, oh, you're talking about your Sephardic minion. Behovin ruach, and it becomes the wind. Yeah, what does mismasmasin mean?
I'm gonna guess evaporates.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. There you go. Okay. You got the real makings of a scientist. I mean, a natural philosopher. Tell me about this, Einstein. The wind, some of it that's close to the fire, changes and mischolel, becomes hollowed out. and becomes fire.
When you have, let's say, like a fire and like a gust of wind comes, it causes it to flare up.
That's a good guess. This I don't think is a literal translation here. It says goes through a metamorphosis. I think that's a loose translation. Yeah. Okay. V'chein haruach, same thing with the wind. Miktaso hasamach l'mayim mishtana u'miskanes v'naseh mayim. The wind, the portion that's close to the water, changes and enters and becomes water. V'chein hamayim miktaso hasamach la'aretz mishtana u'miskanes v'naseh eretz. So to the water, the part that's close to the earth changes and goes and becomes earth. Okay. V'shinoi zeh, I don't know what. Yeah.
He's go through all of them.
No, some of them don't go both ways, right? Fire, yeah, fire doesn't go both ways.
Is that the only one?
Earth, did you say earth becomes air? No, right?
No. Well, it seems like it only goes up one.
Yeah, one level, yeah. Okay, this change is very gradual. It takes many years. And not all of the element changes until all of the water becomes ruach or all of the ruach becomes eish. Because it's impossible to nullify any one of the four elements. Rather, part of it changes from fire to wind, and some part of it changes from wind to fire. And so too, between all of each one and its fellow, you will find change among the four, and they go in a cycle. Okay, I'm not getting anything out of this.
Well, I'm thinking like if we were to talk about like the modern day like analogy of this, it would be, I think it would be like talking about how like chemical reactions work and like atomic forces.
Right, that's true.
And like when I took chemistry, just seeing how like complex and intricate and like amazing the phenomena are, I think. So I don't know what the analogy for the spheres is, but I feel like this, like if you really like understand it and reflect on it, it's like
yeah, okay, that makes sense. Can you imagine how long this paragraph would be if he had all the elements that we have right now? Talking about all the different combinations. Yeah.
Sometimes two hydrogens confused together.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, one thing you definitely see from here is the that a person would get from here, which I think we definitely got in a different way with the periodic table, is how many combinations of, like, you look at the world, you see all these different kinds of things, and you think it's all just like these four elements. It's kind of like when you're, when you first, or when you're a kid and you're learning about your colors, and you first realize like how, all the colors on your monitor or whatever are just, green, blue, and red, and like, it's just all, makes all the different combinations, and like, it's unbelievable. And he's saying that for the physical world. So this change, there's that pesky galgal again. It comes about as a result of the rotation of the sphere. And through its rotation, the four are joined. And from them come the other forms of man, the nefesh chaya, and the soul of the wild animal, the temach, and the plant, the even u'metechas, and the stone and the metal. I never saw this halacha. Okay. So this now is exactly like the Rabag. I'll explain in a second, right? God endows each and every material with the form that's proper to it through the 10th malach, which is the form that is called ishim, right? So this is the active intellect, right? And that's what I read in the Rabag. The active intellect does two things. It brings the seichel of man from potential to actual, and it endows the material world with forms. And the Rambam is now has identified both those capacities, because the first time you mentioned Ishim, he said it's the one that talks to the Nevi'im, which is, I know that's different than all ideas, but like, he is saying it's the thing that is responsible for human knowledge in Nevuah, and then here he's saying that it's the thing that endows the world with forms. There you go. Okay. All right, good. Wow. See, this is like, I guess this answers the question. I mean, I can't say I've never read this before, but certainly not long enough before I had any thoughts about the active intellect. So I would have definitely noticed this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I totally understand if you can't answer this question. But how do the spheres cause them to cause like the elements to combine?
Yeah, you can borrow my volumes of Aristotle's De Anima or whatever on. You can't even get the question now. Yeah. Yeah. Not of my interest. Okay. Olam ein ata roe golem below tsura, o tsura below golem. Okay, so now we're getting to stuff that's more relevant. So you will never see a material without a form or form without material, right? So that's in contrast to what he said earlier when he said that there are things that are form without material, which is true. You'll never see them. Anything that we see is going to be a combination of form and matter. Yeah. Ela lev ha'adam hu shemachalek haguf hanimsa bada'ato v'yodea shu mechubar migolam mitzora. So rather, it's the mind of man that divides the entity that is found in his mind and knows that it is comprised of material and form. Okay, I'm going to pause there for 1 second. So, actually, no, I should read the whole thing. The Yodea, and he knows Sheyesham Gufim Shagalman Mechubar Me'arba Yesodos. He knows that there are bodies that whose materials are comprised of the 4 elements. V'gufim Shagalman Pashut, and bodies that are simple. V'ein, meaning not composite. V'eino Mechubar Me'golam Acher, and they're not comprised of any other material. V'hatzuros she'ein lahem golam einan nirin la'ayin, and the forms that have no material are not visible to the eye. Ella be'ein halev hein yeduin, but they are known through the mind's eye. Kamoshi adanu adon hakol below re'iyas ayin, as we know the Lord of all without the seeing of the eye. Yeah, so this is taking a stance on, and without, I don't really know how to go into this, but this is taking a stance on what is the nature of the relationship between form and matter. So he's saying it is something that exists that can be divided in the mind of man. It's not like in other words, this is, I think, rejecting like the Platonic idea of like a world of forms that like exists, that all, like, obviously he holds that there's such things as forms without matter, but like whatever Plato meant by like there's a world of forms, of like the form of everything is like in some other realm. He's saying no, it's like the things are fused in reality, but the mind separates them.
So what are the forms?
That's a complicated question. Yeah. I don't. A lot of ink has been spilled on that question. Meaning, what does it mean that they exist or that they're real, or like what mode of existence they have? Yeah. Not surprising that there's more in Adler book on this. I'll see if I can refresh my memory and maybe provide some guidance here. But I don't remember offhand. There's also, have you ever heard the book Sophie's World? Oh, that's an interesting one. So it's a cool book. I have never made it all the way through. It's written for, I would guess, like smart middle schoolers or like smart high schoolers. It is this fictional account of this girl named Sophie, I think in one of the Scandinavian countries, who ends up involved in this correspondence through letters with this philosopher, and like the whole book is like a dialogue, but he takes her through all major figures in Western thought and all the ideas that they have, like their major ideas, but like in explaining it to like a teenage girl. And so I seem to recall last time I dealt with this question, which was a while ago, then it was a helpful thing. So I might send it. I don't think I'm gonna go through it in the Rambam bekius here, but I could send it to you. Okay. Ooh, here we go. We got to the soul. All right, this is the heavy stuff here. Okay, these next 2 paragraphs. Nefesh kol basar, the soul of all flesh. He tsuraso shenasan lo hakel, is its form that was endowed by God. So tsura equals nefesh. Tsura of basar equals nefesh. Okay, so
no saying lo hakel, even though he was saying before that it's like,
yeah, he used the same verb before. He said God was no saying through the 10th malach, right? Hakel no saying l'chol golem golem tsura lo alidei malach asiri. Yeah. So when he says basar, I assume he means man and animal.
Mhm.
Okay, but not plant and metal and stone, because that's not basar.
So why is that different in terms of forms and stuff?
Good question. Yeah, I guess we can see. What does this say? Let's look at the footnote. Just I want to do all the footnotes just in case. Hi tzuras nasan love v'chulei. Hanefesh hi hamahus she'adoshem nasan la'adam b'koach. So the nefesh is the essence that God endowed in man in potentiality. V'hatfisus shel ha'adam hamaskil. Oh, sorry. I guess we haven't read this yet. All right, so let's read the whole halacha first. All right, so v'hadas hayesera, and now I don't know if that is the added das or the superior das, or I don't know if it makes a difference. Hamatsuya b'nafsho shel adam, which is found in the soul of man. Hi tzuras ha'adam hashalim badato. It is the form of the man who is perfected in his knowledge. This is a very, very complicated sentence. So you've got the nefesh of all basar is its tzura, and the additional das that's found in the soul of man is the tzura of the man who is perfect in his knowledge. Yeah, I just don't even know what to make of this. Yeah. The al tzura zo nemar ba'Torah, and regarding that form, it is said in the Torah, Nasa adam b'talminu kidmusenu. Let us make man like in our form, like our likeness. Klomar, meaning to say, shetihi elo tzura hayodas umasegas adeos she'en lahem golem, that man should have a form which knows and apprehends the ideas that do not have the immaterial ideas, ad sheyidme lahen, until he comes to resemble them. V'ino omer al tzura zo hanikeres la'inayim, and this is not said in reference to the form that is discernible to the eyes, shuhu hapeh v'hachotem v'halastasos, which is the mouth and the nose and the I think those are cheeks. Ushar rosh maguf, and the other form of the body, shizo torah shma, that's called toar. Ve'ina hanefesh hamitzuya l'chol nefesh chaya, and it is also not the soul that is found found for every living creature. Shabbat, this is answering your question, I think. Shabbat ochel v'shosa umolidu margish maharher, through which it eats and drinks and procreates and senses and muses or like imagines. Ella hadea, rather it's the knowledge. Shehi tzuras nefesh, which is the form of the soul. Uvatzuras nefesh hakas medaber, and the pasuk is speaking about the form of the soul. Amin rabos tikarazot hatzura nefesh v'ruach, and many times this tzura is called nefesh and ruach. Ulfikach, and therefore tzarich lihizaher b'shemos. One needs to be careful with the names. Shalotita, they don't make a mistake. B'chol shem v'shem yilamim inyano, and each and every name you learn out from its context. Yeah, I'm going to be. This is going to be a central thing in my Sunday shiur this Sunday.
What's the topic?
Elokai neshama. Yeah. Okay. So this is very, 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 very hard.
Yeah. It sounds like he's like defining a term, then he's saying it also doesn't mean that, or some other term means that. Not quite.
Yeah. Okay. So let's break it down, right? So the nefesh kol basar hi tzuras nasan l'kel. So that, I think, if you then skip ahead to ches 2, that's the nefesh that's found in every nefesh chaya, through which it eats and drinks and reproduces and does all this other stuff. So that's its form, right? So the form is that which makes the thing what it is, right? And in animals, that's going to be the thing that makes it have all of its animal properties, right? The thing that makes the squirrel, and the thing that makes the fish, right? Yeah, I was using squirrel as a verb.
Right.
Yeah.
So they all have different forms?
They all have different forms.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But it's all called nefesh.
Yeah, each one is called each it's nefesh. Yeah, yeah. So like for example, like the nefesh of 2 different dogs is the same nefesh, but it's mattered in different dog matter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be dog matter. That was something. Okay. All right. Now we can read the footnotes, I think. He sorts shenasan lakel. All right, hanevesh yamahu sheshem nasan ladan bakoach. So the soul, the nefesh is the essence that God placed in man in potentiality. The hatfisus shel ha'adam hamaskil hachai al pihen hin hamimush shel ozokol. Okay, I don't know modern Hebrew. I gotta get get the Greek dictionary.
You will over to come help.
Am I just not seeing it? I'll use an calculator if necessary. That's okay. Calculator should be fine. I bet it's like strewn about somewhere. I thought we had more of them. Yeah, this is better. Okay, so what are we looking at? Tfisus. Anyone know what tfisus is?
Ramas.
What do you say? Yeah, I assume it's related to that, but I assume it means something more specific. Graspiness. I didn't pay. Okay, tfisus. Tfisus is occupancy, incumbency, or perceptibility. Okay, let's see if that's going to work. Or, sorry, hold on. Yeah, apprehension, perception, understanding, viewpoint, outlook. Okay, so is the tfisus, hatfisus shel adam hamaskil, the perception of a rational shel adam hamaskil achai. Maybe hamaskil achai means the rational animal, right? The perception of man who is a rational animal, al pihen, is on their basis. Hein hamimush. Mimush. Mimush sounds like one of those like nicknames people have for like their grandma or like someone from some foreign country. How do you even spell this with a yud? Mimush.
Okay. A little animal in an anime.
Yes. Mimush. Mimush is mim. Mush. So it's not here in that spelling. Mimosa means a mimosa. Let me do it without the yud. Mimush, realization. Okay, is the realization of that potential. So man's apprehension of things actualizes this potential. Okay, I'm cool with that. Hadeos shein lahem golem, that's hamalachim haskalim hanivdalim. Okay, fine. And then let's just look at this other footnote, and then we'll try to put everything together here. We actually have to read Tess also, but let's do the footnote on Ches too. These concepts are used in different with different implications. And each implication is dependent on its context. He hasn't talked about neshama yet, right? All right, so it's out of order. All right, so let's look at tests in the halacha first. The form of this nefesh is not comprised of the elements such that it would separate into them. Okay, so that's an important point. The eina mikoch haneshama, and it is not from the power or faculty or potential, I don't know which best translation here, or force of the neshama, such that it would need the neshama like the neshama needs the body. Now he hasn't defined neshama yet. That's a problem. Ella me'is Hashem min hashmayim, rather it's from Hashem from heaven. Lefikach, therefore, kashi part of the hagolem, when the body decomposes, shihu mechubar min yesod, which is comprised of the elements, the tovad haneshama, and the neshama is destroyed, because it is only found with the body, and it needs the body in all of its activities. This tzura, meaning the nefesh, will not be cut off, because it doesn't need the neshama in its activities. Rather, it knows and apprehends the ideas that are separate from matter, and it knows the creator of all. V'omenes la'olam u'la'olmei alamim, and it lasts forever and ever. Hu she'amar Shlomo b'chachmasav yashav he'afar al ha'aretz keshahaya v'haruach tashuv el ha'elokim asher nasana. The earth will return, the dust will return to the earth like it was, and the ruach here I think means spirit will return to the God who gave it. Yeah. So here's what I want to do actually. I just want to read those paragraphs in the Chabad translations just to see if they have a better way to conceptualize it. The soul of all flesh is the form which it was given by God. The extra dimension which is found in the soul of the man is the form of man who is perfect in his knowledge. Concerning this form, the Torah states, let us make man in our image and like our likeness, i.e., granting man a form which knows and comprehends ideas that are not material, like the angels, who are formed without body, until he can resemble them. This statement does not refer to the form of the body perceived by the eye, i.e., the mouth, the nose, the cheeks, and the remainder of the structure of the body, as this is referred to as toar, appearance. It is not the soul found in all living flesh, which allows it to eat, drink, reproduce, feel, and think. Rather, knowledge is the form of this dimension of the soul, and it is concerning this form of the soul that the verse states, in our image and like in our likeness. Frequently, this form is referred to as nefesh or ruach. Therefore, one must be careful regarding these names, lest another person err regarding them. Lest another person err regarding them? Yit'eh adam behen. Oh, I guess he's saying yit'eh means like you cause someone else to err. Each name reveals its characteristics. The form of this soul. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's probably why I translated it that way. So you won't err, or you won't cause yourself to err. The form of this soul is not a combination of the fundamental elements into which it will ultimately decompose, nor does it come from the neshama, so that it would require the neshama as the neshama requires the body. Rather, it is from God, from heaven. Therefore, when the matter of the body, which is a combination of the fundamental elements, decomposes, and the neshama ceases to exist, for the neshama exists only together with the body and requires the body for all its deeds, this form will not be cut off, for this form does not require the neshama for its deeds. Rather, it knows and comprehends knowledge which is above matter, knows the creator of all things, and exists forever. In his wisdom, Solomon gave this description: the dust will return to the earth as it originally was, and the ruach will return to God who granted it. I have an idea, actually, maybe. So, in a dog, so the form of the dog is the thing that makes it do all the dog stuff, and that is that its not livelihood. That's not what you say. Its vitality is dependent on. So when the dog dies, that nefesh ceases, and that nefesh is a material phenomenon, or it's at least dependent on the material phenomenon, because it's nichras, it's cut off. Okay. And the body of the dog decomposes. Now, a human being also has that kind of nefesh, but that's not the nefesh of man. So maybe that is the neshama of man in the Rambam's lingo, meaning the thing that the same thing that makes that keeps the dog alive and is responsible for all of its dogly activities. That in us is called the neshama, because we wouldn't call that the nefesh, because the nefesh is the tzelem elokim.
Nefesh being what makes the thing what it is.
Yeah. Because we definitely have the thing that the dog has, but we just have more than that, and also that's not the thing that defines us. In the dog, that's what makes the dog what it is. In us, it's not what makes us what we are.
Right. We have monkey thing and
yeah.
Right.
Like our physical functions are not what make us not what define humans.
Right. But that thing, I mean, it's hard to call it a thing, but that thing that makes all of our physiological functions function, that's the neshama, which is why when the organism dies, it just ceases. But in an animal, that thing is called the nefesh. I wonder if that's plausible.
Also, when he says that the nefesh goes on and is able to perceive like the non-physical forms and stuff even after you die. So how does that work with like the brain being like the fact that the brain like works things out?
Yeah, I mean, Adler has a book on that called Intellect, Mind Over Matter, where he describes the relationship, or he talks about the relationship between the mind and the brain, and clearly there is a relationship. I might have said this line before, but like the catchphrase in that is the you don't think with your brain, but you can't think without it. Mm-hmm. That your intellect needs your brain for all of its operation, but the intellect is what's doing the thinking.
So then how does it keep thinking afterward?
Right. So this gets into a dicey question, which we brushed up against earlier about like, what is an intellect? End of sentence. Right. What is an intellect? Because the only intellect we're familiar with is intellect in the, and this also gets into the question that you asked earlier about like, in what mode do the forms exist when they are not in mattered, you know? Yeah. You know, I might have to delve into this over the weekend to, again, obviously this is a huge topic, but like to see if we can get some semblance of this, because this is going to touch on so many things, you know, olam haba, what makes man different, what the, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Let's go back to the footnotes and see if this is going to help us at all. I just want to read the whole thing in the footnote. So hamusagim, this is on 8 ches 2. Hamusagim mamash mishamshim bekama mashmuyos. So he says the neshama is not being used the way that we use it now, as the eternal portion of man, right? Because that's what we think the neshama, that's how we use neshama. And there are Rishonim who say that that's what neshama means. Yeah, like the Ibn Ezra. I think you mentioned the Ibn Ezra on the 3 parts of the soul. Yeah, right. So he says the neshama is the rational part of you that goes on, I think.
Does the Torah ever use neshama?
Yeah. I mean, that's related to that. I mean, Nishmas Chaim is the breath of life, but the soul of life. It's the same word. But I mean, Tanakh definitely uses it. Kol HaNeshama Halakha. You know, V'chol Asher Nishmas Chaim Bo Be'apav Nisham. Yeah. There are cases. Yeah. Okay, fine. But even if the Torah used that, see, this is another question. I don't think this is a question, but the Rambam says that sometimes this tzura is called nefesh or ruach. Okay, so does he mean only those 2 terms, or is he just giving examples? Right. Because it is very hard to say. Like the pshat, when Rabbeinu Yonah, who holds by the Ibn Ezra's trifold division, is explaining how neshama means the intellect, he quotes kol ha-neshama talaka as the example of that, because he says the part of you that praises God is your intellect, not your psyche and not your body. Right. So I'm assuming the Rambam would say it's not davka these 2 terms, but there are, you know, it could be the neshama also, or like maybe other terms, you know, like the very fact that he uses the word tzelem for tzelem elokim, you know, that's also referring to, according to him, to the same thing as the nefesh of Adam, right? Yeah.
Also, what's kind of the point of, you know, being so careful about these words? Like, is it just so that you can read the Torah? Or
I think so. I think because if you think you're talking, you know, these are subtle distinctions, and if you think you're talking about one element of the soul, you know, but you're really the Torah is referring to something else, then you're going to get mixed up in your ideas. And in other words, it's not like, you know, it is a weird convention that even though there is technical jargon, they're interchangeable. I mean, Mishlei we're familiar with that but yeah, it's strange here.
Yeah, so like if you see something that says the neshama will decompose.
Right. Then don't think that means that we're denying the eternality of the neshama or of the soul. Okay. Then he says, Nirshim. Yeah. See, I don't know these modern Hebrew words. Migvan. I'm not going to look it up. Hamashma'uyos shel hamila nefesh v'ruach mishakif es ha'uvda. These are all modern Hebrew words. Shehahebetim hashonim ba'adam u'vichlalam haruchani v'hagufani kshurim zebzeh u'mahavim mahus achas v'nefesh ha'adam nefesh achasi. Yeah, I actually, yeah, you know, this is hard to know where to go here, because if we really want to understand the soul, then the place where the Rambam talks about is the first chapter of Shemona Prakim, which is what he's referring to here. Yeah. All right, let's see the next footnote. Haneshama is hakoch hamachayes guf. Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's the thing, the vitality of the body. Of omedes olam olamim, that's talking about the nefesh. Nitzches, that's forever. V'Rambam mishtamesh b'matbea lashon zeh l'tayr es hakaras Hashem hanitzchius. Rambam uses this phrase to describe recognition of eternal recognition of God. Nitzchius haTorah, and the eternality of the Torah. The din ha'avadan hanitzchi l'Rashaim, and the eternal punishment of Rashaim. Yeah. So we got to figure out what this means here about the hadas hayesera hamatuya b'nafsho shel adam heat suras adam hashalim b'dato. See, what I would have said is so if the tzura is the thing that makes it the thing what it is, so then the tzura of man is his knowledge. But Rambam's saying it's the tzura of the man who's perfected in his knowledge.
So is that like his ability? Like his ultimate
Yeah. That's one possibility. Like the capacity to know is the tzura of man, is the real tzura of man. But the other possibility is that you acquire your soul. Your soul is your knowledge. So you're like the more knowledge you gain, the more you're really actualizing your soul. And the only fully
actualized soul is
the one that knows everything. Yeah.
Right.
It's just, this is hard. Yeah.
Also, what does that mean that you are your knowledge? I guess that's a
Yeah, you know what maybe we should do? I don't know if this is going to make things better or worse. Let's do the first paragraph of the Moreh Nevuchim. Okay, I'll go get him. You sit there with your leg.
Yeah.
Somebody unload things. This is not the page I'm very tired.
Right, yeah.
Let's do it in Hebrew, but then have the English for reference.
Only 3.
I think we have more. I think we have, I think we have 4.
They also have the other translation, right?
The other translation?
Yeah.
Yeah. You mean the Hebrew? The other Hebrew translation?
Oh, there's 2 English translations.
Oh, the red guy.
The bad one? The Friedlander? Yeah, we do. Yeah, we have tons of those. Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna look at the Moreh Nevuchim online. All right, so let's do this in Hebrew. And the reason why I'm doing it in Hebrew is because the terminology is so sensitive, So we're at Perek Aleph, not the very beginning of the Moreh Nevuchim, obviously. This is about tzelem and demus. Okay.
Wasn't the Hebrew also the translation?
Yeah, but if he's explaining terms in the Torah, then he's going to use the
right.
Then at least for the Hebrew terms, he's going to use the Hebrew terms. Yeah. Okay. So we have here. Let me just get this. Yeah. Okay. Kvar. Got it? Is that your starts? Kvar.
Yeah.
Kvar chashvu b'nei adam ki tzelem b'lashon ha'ivri Moreh al tavnis hadavar v'torah. So people think that the word tzelem in the Hebrew language refers to the structure of a thing and its appearance. Okay. What does it say? The shape and configuration of a thing. The heviam hadavar lidei hagshama muchletes, and this matter has brought them into utter corporealism. Right, I mean, like believing that God is physical. The fi shenemar nas adam bitsalmenu ki musenu, because it says, "Let us make man bitsalmenu ki musenu." Right, so yeah, v'chashvu, and they think ki Hashem kitzuras adam, that Hashem is like the form of man, klomar tavniso v'taro, meaning his shape and configuration. All right, v'chayvo hagshama muchletes ve'aminu b'kach, and this necessitates utter corporealism, and they believe it. And they believe, it seems to them that if they abandon this opinion, then they would be denying what the Torah says, what the pasuk says. Or they would be denying God. Or was it denying God, or there would be no God? Yeah, it says they would make the deity to be nothing at all, Im lo yihye guf bal panim v'yad kamosam b'tavnes v'tor. If it not for the fact that he had a body and a hand like them, and a structure and a shape. But he is just bigger and brighter in their imagination. Whereas this is like the people I was reading about them over the weekend. The people who did hold by corporealism hold that God is like made out of some sort of like ethereal substance, and he has a body, but it's just really big and bright and clear. Right, and his material is not flesh and blood. Zehu tachlis mashinir lahem shuhu romus biyachas l'Hashem. That is what they think is the utmost degree of exaltedness of Hashem. Aval mashet tzarich leheamer b'shlilas hagashmus ukvias ha'achdus hamitis. But what you need to know regarding the negation of corporeality and the establishment of true oneness, asher ein la amitus ki'im b'harchakas hagashmus, which is only true if you utterly distance corporeality. Teda, you should know, you should know the proof of all of this from this treatise. But we're only going to explain here tzelem and duos. Okay, so here's his explanation. V'omer, ki hatzura hamefursemes etel hamon, asher hi tavnis hadavar v'torah. So the surah that is very, widely accepted by the hamon, which is the shape and configuration, shema hamyuchad la b'lashon ivri toar. So its proper expression in Hebrew language is toar. Yefei Torah v'yefei Moreh. That's Yosef, right? He was beautiful in appearance, or in figure, and beautiful in appearance. Ma Torah. What is its description? Ketar b'nei hamelech, like the appearance of the sons of the king, as the form of the children of the king. And it also is said about the form in craft. Yitarehu besered uvemechuga yitarehu. What is this? He marketh its form with a line, and he marketh its form with a compass. All right. The Elish Shemos Sheinam Ne'emarim Al Hashem Yisrael Klal Chalila V'chas. This is a real Chalila, Isaac. These terms are never said about God. Okay, so you never use Torah about God. Okay, so Torah is physical configuration. Tzelem. About tzelem nemar al hatsura hativis. Okay, all right, this is a little... Tzelem is said about the natural form. Klomar al ha'inyan asher bo nihi hadavar. Regarding the thing by which it is what it is. I think that's how I would say it. In the English here it says, I mean to the notion in virtue of which a thing is constituted as a substance and becomes what it is. V'naseh mashu. I didn't read that last one. Asher bo nihi hadavar v'naseh mashu. V'hi amitaso machmas heyoso oso matsui. It is the true reality of the thing insofar as the latter is that particular being. Okay. Lo l'tavnis ha'ivarim v'toran, not the structure of the limbs and their description. V'kach ani omer ki hatam shenikru ha'psilim slamim mipnei shamavukash mehem inyanam sheim choshvim behem lo tavnisam v'toram. So he says that I think that's why they call idols slamim. Okay, why? Because he says, hold on. Did I skip something? Yes, I did. I skipped a bunch. Because of this intellectual apprehension, it is said that man was created in the tzelem Elokim. That's why it says you degraded their tzelems. Because bizayon is relevant to the nefesh, which is the form of the species, not the structure of the limbs and their description. I am burnt out right now. I think we need to close this and come back to it next week. I do want to go through this first chapter in the Moreh Nevuchim though, and then go back to the Mishneh Torah and just try to get clear, because this is an important thing. What is the soul? Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Just late in the week.
Yeah. Understood.
All right. Stop here for today.
Have a good day.
Yeah, you too.